Hi, welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's chapters are Daniel chapter 8 and 9. Now, these are fascinating prophecies. They concern not only the demise of the Babylonian Empire, the coming in of the Persians, but also the replacement of the Persians by the Greeks by the Romans, and then ultimately the Antichrist just before the coming of Jesus and the eternal kingdom of Jesus being set up. Now, what's fascinating about these prophecies is when they dated. It says here, they dated while the Babylonians were still in charge. Before that fateful night when there was writing on the wall, that's when Daniel was given these visions. So let's look at the first one. I looked, and there before me was a ram standing there with two horns. Now, I'm on holiday, so my props are a bit limited, but here's a ram with two horns. Verse 20, Gabriel is sent to Daniel to give him the meaning of what this ram is that's got two horns. And it's basically, Gabriel says, this is the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Remember, they hadn't taken Babylon yet. He says, these guys are coming in, they're coming out to take out Babylon. I watched the ram as a charge toward the west and the north and the south. Remember, these guys are having dinner, big party inside. The Persians are outside at this moment, but he's charging. He's going to take over the Babylonian Empire, did what he pleased. And while I was thinking about it, verse 5 says, suddenly a goat with a prominent horn, another goat, appears on the scene. And he comes from the west. Now, in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, the Greek Empire was depicted by thighs of brass. Remember that? And in Daniel's dreams, by a swift leopard. But now Daniel sees an angry goat representing the Greeks. And he says it came toward the two-horned goat ram, and it took it out, it knocked its horns off, and there it stood proud as this Greek empire. But it says this single horn fell out, and another four horns grew up in its place, and describing the four rulers that would come out of this Greek empire. Now, if we have a look at the history books, this is what happened. This protruding one horn, the first leader of the Greek Empire who established this Greek Empire, was Alexander the Great. But it says he broke off, he fell off. Why? Well, he died very young, didn't he? He was like 33 years old when he died in the year 323 BC. And his kingdom, after he died, was split up into four, and his four governors, four rulers, led the kingdom after them. And they basically set up the Greek dynasty, which paved the way for the coming of the gospel. Our New Testament is written in Greek because Greek culture permeated the civilized world. And what the Greeks started, the Romans finished. The Romans, remember, in Daniel's prophecy, when he interpreted Nebuchadnezzar's prophecy, they were reflected as iron legs. That the Romans came in, built roads, built bridges, and the gospel traveled on those roads and bridges. And so this was all heading towards God's plan of his gospel reaching the four corners of the earth. So Gabriel says, tell him the meaning of this prophecy. He says, look, those are the Persians and those are the Greeks. But he says, then what will happen is that one will become very strong out of those dynasties. And he's going to be a wicked, wicked ruler. Now, history tells us that Antiochus Epiphanes, the ruler of Syria, from 175 to 163 BC, was known as one of the cruelest rulers in all of history. He gave himself the name Epiphanes because, which means illustrious. He even put Theos on the edge of his coins with his name on it. He claimed like he was almost deity. And he flattened Jerusalem, this guy. He outlawed the Jewish religion. And he was a forerunner, a picture of the Antichrist coming. And it was so distressing to Daniel that he was worn out and exhausted. Now, chapter 9, Daniel says this. He says, I understood from the scriptures, according to the word of the Lord given to the prophet Jeremiah, that we were going to be in captivity 70 years. It's coming to an end now. And so he intercedes, begins to pray. He says, God, I'm praying not because of our righteousness, but I'm praying because of your mercy. And he says, please, would you intervene? Now, this is what the Lord says to Gabriel, to Daniel through Gabriel. As soon as you began to pray, this word came to you. and then he gives them a detailed description about a period of 7 years or 490 years. And those years are basically split up into 49 years, 434 years, and then 7 years. There isn't the time right now to dissect how it all is, but that first 49-year period describes Cyrus sending the Jews back, rebuilding the temple. And then the second 434 years take us to the start of Jesus' ministry. And then the last 7 years are a prophetic picture of the time of the Antichrist, just before the second return of Jesus. And so for you to study this, I would recommend get yourselves a couple of good commentaries, and it's intriguing at the accuracy of the years and the months and the sequence of events that Daniel prophesies.